Yeah.
Well, my name is Kurt Dahl, Curtis R. Dahl Jr. I go by Kurt. I studied fine art at the York Academy of Arts. I graduated with honors in 1977. I painted and I played drums for a country western band for 2 years for extra money, but when I wasn't, really making out money, very much money, I then went to Reading, Pennsylvania, and worked for stained glass designer, stained glass artist. He had his own studio. And I was started out by making Dow de Verre windows, the inch-thick glass that I just told you about, which is cast in epoxy resin. And we did, I don't know, it was a whole church, and it was like circular, and they were like 19 feet high, something like that, 20 feet high. And from there, I went to different studios, and I was both a craftsman and a designer because of the nature of stained glass, where I was located at the time, and because of the economy and so forth, and the location. We really didn't get a whole lot of new design work. We got a lot of restoration work. So for the first, let's see, 6, 7 years, I was basically a craftsman. I cut a lot of glass. I leaded a lot of windows together. I cemented a lot of windows together. I installed a lot of windows, like 40 feet up in the air. I remember this one job. We had a 20-foot extension ladder, and the guy that I was working with had to use this U-shape thing on the very top rung to move the ladder out away from the exterior of the building, so that I could climb up and stand on the top rungs of this 20-foot ladder, and I had to get on my tiptoes to solder it in. But I continued to paint. I'm going to be 56 years old, December the 10th of this year, and I've been painting ever since I can't remember when I wasn't, even when I was in high school, I substituted study hall for painting in the art department. That is my first love. But in working with stained glass, you're working with colored light. And there is a big difference between pigment and colored light. Pigment is subtractive. Colored light is additive, which means every time that you add one color to another in pigment, it subtracts from its luminosity. Whereas every time that you add a color in glass or in light, you get a more brilliant light. And there are 3 basic primaries that make up both colored light and pigment. The pigment, the 3 basic colors are red, blue, and green. Red, yellow, and blue. The 3 in light are red, green, and blue. The green taking the place of the yellow, which was really, really difficult for me to understand from the beginning. But when you put green, light, and red together, they produce yellow. I mean, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, you know. Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, yellow is the lightest in the color wheel. Yellow is the lightest, and violet, which is the combination of red and blue, is the darkest. And then green and orange are intermediaries. But yellow and blue make green. Yellow and red makes orange. And the yellow is such a light color that whenever it's mixed with either red or blue, it creates a lighter shade than, you know, than the blue or the red. And that makes sense. But in light, when you take a dark color like red and a dark color like green and mix those two together, you get a lighter color, which is yellow. And it just doesn't make any sense. But, you know, as I said before, light, colored light, which is stained glass. It's colored light. It's a translucent medium with light coming through, and that is where the color comes from. Whereas pigment, is light being reflected, color being reflected off of a surface, and that makes it a whole lot less luminous. You can use browns and grays in a stained glass window and end up with a more luminous color composition than the richest reds and blues and primaries and secondaries and tertiaries in pigment, in painting, in traditional oil paint or pastel or whatever. But I still love to do pastel paint and acrylic and oil paint. Well, the way that I did these windows, the designs for these windows, you know, you start out with scaled designs. These I did 1 inch equals a foot. The ones that we're going to see next are like 1/2 inch to a foot because of the scale. But I did Mount Vernon, actually it's Mount Vernon Nazarene University. It began as a college and has become a university in Ohio, Mount Vernon, Ohio, Nazarene University. Abstract, stylized, abstract, really. I've just embarked on a series of figure paintings, or figure drawings actually, and figure paintings in pastel. But I first began, it just happened. I took a sketchbook along to Off-Track Wagering, where my dad loves to go. He loves especially when I bring my son, which is his namesake. So when the three Kurts get together at the Off-Track Wagering, he used to love to go to the track, but he can't anymore because he's 93 years old. You know, he just can't get around. But I just took my sketchbook along and I just started sketching, and all of a sudden, this style of figures just began. I mean, it's, you know, I was told a long time ago that I was given a God-given gift, that my art is a God-given gift. And I said to people, if you knew how hard I had to study and work and learn human anatomy and the science of color and design and all the design elements, all the design principles, all this stuff, you wouldn't say such a thing. It wasn't until 30, 40 years later that I finally realized just how much I rely upon God. You know, without God in my life, I am nothing. And really, when it comes right down to it, God is using me as his instrument to do this. You know, I couldn't do this on my own. I couldn't do this on my own. This is the work of God. You know, it is the work of God. He's using me as his instrument, and even when I didn't realize it, you know, but he didn't care.
Do you approach many of your projects with the same kind of thought that God?
Yes. Now I pray and meditate throughout the day, and I have been growing in leaps and bounds spiritually through prayer and through meditation. And my favorite book, I would have to say, in the Bible is 1 John, because 1 John talks about love. And 1 John, he says that God is love. That is the great truth that sets me free. That is the greatest truth that sets me free. The truth that God is love. Doesn't just love, God is love. And out of his overabundance and boundless love, he created all this. He created the entire universe. I mean, God is so humongous, omniscient, omnipresent, omnipotent are the only words, and they don't even come close to expressing the depth and the breadth and the greatness of God. You know, I have a few, you know, the love chapter in Corinthians, 1 Corinthians 13, I think it is, the love chapter, you know, it gives me an inkling, an idea of what love is. But it's just an inkling. The depth of love that is God, who created all of this, I can't even begin. I cannot even begin to understand it. I feel at home when I come here, you know. This congregation, Tiferet Israel, was the most respectful of all the people that I had done stained glass design jobs for. I showed them all of the commercial stained glass designs that I had done for churches, and they didn't like any of them. But I had done Lumieres, and that's how I did these. A Lumiere is a translucent, photochemically processed piece of film, and when you get it, it is translucent. And you use Dr. Martin's watercolors, which are specifically designed for photochemically processed film. And you paint the colors, and then you paint the black line work, and actually the scale design looks like a miniature stained glass window. You hold it up to the light and let the light shine through it. You don't look at it with the light shining off of it. You have to look at it with the light coming through it. I remember doing these on my light table at home on my own time when I was working for Franklin Art Glass here in Columbus. While I was there, during the daytime I was working on, you know, commissions, but I loved this project, and I loved the fact, you know, they looked at these Lumieres that I had done on my own, in my own style, and they loved them. They didn't like any of the commercial things. They loved my style. And that's why they wanted symbolism, but they wanted it to be rendered subtly somehow. I said, sure, I can do that. All I need to do is just paint it over the glass, you know, and it will become sort of like, I mean, it's black, just like the lead line is black with the light coming through, and it will become a part of the total abstract design. It's every single piece of this glass was handpicked. Franklin Art Glass has been in business since the early 20th century, and they had these little tiny cut-offs of glass from, I mean, years ago, and every single piece of glass in this job, in this chapel, is either imported from England, France, or Germany. It is 100% mouth-blown glass. The color comes from, as I told you before, a metal alloy that is put in the molten glass, and the gold pink that's made with gold. I love that. The more gold you put in, the more rich ruby red you get, and the less you get like a gold pink, like in that window up there at the top. And I just love that pink. But I love red as it is to begin with. But anyhow, I rooted through all of these. I mean, Franklin Art Glass is a pretty big stained glass studio, and I rooted through all the bins to select every single piece of glass by hand that was made in this job. And you know, I cut a few of the pieces, but my main job there was design. I did the full-size drawings. I painted. I did the paint work and the etching and the silver staining and all that stuff. But you know,
As far as making it, what's the process? I mean, I know it's like heat up to a certain degree. Go ahead and talk about that.
well, first you have to do the full-size drawing from the scaled drawing. And the way I determined the width of the different lead lines, you can see here there are a variety of different lead widths. I color-coded every line, you know, and gave them a color code on the side. You know, blue is an inch thick. Yellow or green is 3/16 of an inch, you know, and on and on. Then I cut out the patterns. After doing the full-size drawings, I then transferred the drawings onto pattern paper, and I numbered each pattern and cut it out with a 3-bladed scissors, which takes out 1/16 of an inch from in between each pattern to account for the heart of the lead. The heart of the lead is a 1/16 of an inch thick. And when you think about it, you know, if you have 1,000/16 of an inch, I mean, you know, it's not going to come out. I mean, it's going to be way too big. So anyhow, I cut out each of the patterns, and then as I was rooting through these glass bins, I taped each pattern to each particular piece of glass from the area that I wanted, you know, because mouth-blown glass can vary from, like in that one color right there, it's red on blue, it's flash glass, red on blue. And you can see the gradation from the red into the blue. And it's also sort of reamed. There's a type of glass called Remy glass, which is really stretched out and done. And when it's being blown, it's really manipulated on the lathe, and as it turns out, you know, just the nature of it, and it's also flashed one surface onto another surface, except they're both of them are clear. And as a result, you get these big, beautiful bubbles, and anything from these big, huge, beautiful bubbles to these tiny little bubbles, and all these striations, and it's gorgeous. And that's the kind of glass that is. And I mean, there are so many combinations: red on green, red on blue, blue on green. You know, they're just endless combinations. And because of the nature of the blowing process, you get these unbelievably gorgeous gradations from one end of the sheet to the other. And you know, I make use of that when I pick out the glass. I make use of those gradations to add to the overall effect. Oh, I have projects all across the country. I did a job for Sun City, which is a suburb, I think, of Phoenix, Arizona. You know, I've done stuff all across the country, working for the Willett Stained Glass Studio in Philadelphia, Franklin Art Glass, which is well known, and got projects from. I mean, I did a mall in Texas. You know. As a matter of fact, in 1987, 24 years ago, when I was working at Franklin Art Glass, this other glass company, which had these bevel clusters made, asked me to design them for them. And bevel clusters are anywhere from 1/4 of an inch, which are the really nice, best kind, to the more commercial, which are 3/16 of an inch thick. And there's about 1/2 of an inch from the edge, which is beveled down. And a bevel cluster is the design that you see in a door window for a home. You know, it's the central design, and then all the glass around it is just cut around it and has borders, and you know, it's very commercial. But I just recently, well, actually, it was in 1999, right when I got out of computer school. All through the 80s and 90s, my parents were telling me, you're going to have to learn how to use the computer someday. My parents were so far ahead of me, you know. I always said, what do I need a computer for? I'm an artist. I use brushes and paint on canvas or pastel on paper, you know. What would I need a computer for? And I found that the computer, it's just a tool, you know, but it is an amazingly versatile tool. And you know, I have my own. I've designed 4 of my own websites. I have designed other websites, you know, for other people. But in 1997, I learned how to use the computer, and when in 1987, before I had access to the computer, it was an unbelievably pain to do these bevel cluster drawings, because they had to be perfect. And I used straight edges on my drafting table. First I did tiny little thumbnail sketches and sent it to them, and they said, yeah, go ahead and do them. So then I had to do a larger template on a piece of paper. And I did the horizontal and vertical center lines, and I did 1/4 of it, and then I took it over on my light table, and I flipped it over and did that half, and then I flipped it over and did the other side, you know, so that it was, bevel clusters are 99% of them are perfectly symmetrical. But when I did these, after I made the full-size template, I then taped it down on my drafting table and made certain that the center lines were actually, the horizontal line was perfect. And then I took Mylar and put it over top, and I used two different widths of technical pens, which are a pain to use, and French curves to make it as precise as possible. Oh man, to someone like myself who is a free-form artist, I love to paint and just let it flow and let whatever it is I'm creating to become, whatever it's going to become. And and also to use mediums which work for me instead of against me. I was told in art school back in the late 70s to always be thankful for the happy accident, and that stuck with me. But doing these precise working drawings, which they used both as promotional, to make promotional prints, and also to use as templates to make the product, the bevel glass product. And I've been working with this company for the past 24 years, and when I learned how to use the computer, it made that process so much more enjoyable. I just cannot tell you the difference between, in the computer you make one line, and then you can make it wider, narrower, whatever. You can color it, you can do whatever with it, You can connect it to another line and create a shape. The computer is an unbelievably versatile tool, but it's only a tool. But now I have a contract with Mica Glass Company. They used to be in Buffalo, New York, but I now have a contract with them whereby I get 10% royalties from the sales of all the designs that I've done for them. And I began, of course, by making the full-size drawing, because it had to be full-size, because when they printed it off, it had to be full-size so that they could use that as the template to make it. And when I was making the full-size drawing, I immediately used that design and put it into a door light. And then I put it into 2 side lights, and then a transom. And there are 4 different basic parts. I have over 553 design applications of these bevel glass clusters. And you can get it off my website, Curtis Graphics Corp. That's I incorporated my business in 2008, mainly so that the contract that I had with Mica would be between companies and not between me and a company, but between companies, which makes it sets it in stone. I put together curtisgraphics.com in 1999, which, from what I understand, the internet was relatively new at the time. And then when I incorporated, it just became Curtis Graphics Corporation. Curtis Graphics, all one word, capital C, capital G, and then corporation. So curtisgraphicscorp.com is my commercial website. I have graphic designs, photographic manipulations, websites designs, motion graphics, and on that site I have my beveled glass designs, because beveled glass is commercial. I have these on my Curtis Graphics site, which is 100% fine art. You know, these windows I consider every bit as fine art as an oil painting or a pastel. But anyhow, curtisgraphicscorp.com, and on that site you will see crystal beveled glass, or crystal beveled glass clusters, I'm not sure which. But you can also access all of my websites from my curtisgraphics.com website. You know, I have links to every one of my other websites on that home page. But curtisgraphicscorp.com, you can access my bevel cluster page, and on that page there is a PDF book of 553 design applications of all the bevel clusters that I had just recently designed for Mika, and I also created the full size drawings, so that if a stained glass studio wants to use a certain bevel cluster, they can get the full size drawing and use that as a template. You know, so I pretty much thought of everything, you know, covered all the bases. But the PDF is completely free. And also on that page, I have 5 different links to 5 different parts of my PDF book. The first is half side lights. They're only like from halfway up to the top, and then the next one are 3/4. The next one are full 14-inch by 18-inch side lights with full, and all the door lights are ovals. But I mean, you can put them in rectangular door lights, and transoms, and then in the 4th section, and I've made windows like this. I have, let's see, 1, 2, 3. No, in the 4th section. In the 4th section, they are 14 by 80-inch side lights, full door lights, and the transom is an arch and is 72 inches wide by 72 inches high. And that is where I went crazy with the design. I mean, I went anywhere from very, very simplified designs to unbelievably complex designs. It's, you know, well, you know, and the fact that I did this, and well, it took me months to do this, you know, even using a computer, it took several months.